Well, hi, Jason. Nice to meet you. Thanks for sitting down with me today.
Pleasure being here, Haley.
Perfect. I just wanted to touch base, I guess, and this is actually our initial meeting over the internet, which is, you know, technology is amazing nowadays. But just wanted to touch base about a few of the things. You're obviously a well-known cutter and a sponsored rider of ours. So I'm under the impression that cutters do a lot of travel. You know, you guys travel from the far north of the country to the far south of the country. So can you tell me what it's like to be on the road? How much do you actually travel? How much do you get your horses out on the road?
Well, I probably don't do quite as many Ks nowadays as that I used to when I was younger and starting out. You know, you're trying to make a name for yourself. So we literally went to every show that was on. Nowadays I probably focus more on age events. There's 5 big age events a year. The first one being Tamworth, the Futurity, and then there's usually Toowoomba, St George, Comet, which is literally just up the road, and then it usually finishes off with Victoria. Now, last year we did another age event in Charters Tower, so that's about 7 or 8 hours north, and then you've got you know, way down to Victoria, which is 3 days drive down there for me. So, look, we still do quite a few Ks. I'm going to guess and say between 25 and 30,000 Ks a year. But yeah, when you know, when I was getting started, you know, I'd go to Toowoomba, you know, 10 hours away just for a weekend show. Probably don't do that nowadays.
Yeah. So how do you prepare your horses for such long trips?
Well, we just it's probably a lot easier on them now because I probably don't like driving as much as I used to. When I was younger, I could drive all day, all night, didn't worry me. But I ride them on shavings the whole time. I'm lucky enough to have a pretty nice trailer that's on airbags and you know, a nice floor and put them on shaving, roomy sort of bays with dividers in them. And I don't usually go. Most places I go now, 7 hours is about the longest I'll be on a truck because I'll usually leave the day before I've got to be, say, at Toowoomba. I'll go to a friend's place about 6 or 7 hours away. We'll get them off, have a bit of a social catch up with our friends, and then keep going. So look, I guess I don't have a horse on the truck near as long as I used to. When I was doing big hours, we'd wrap legs and do whatever we needed to, get them off and make sure horses stayed hydrated. But yeah, I don't think I'd go too many places where a horse is on the truck longer than 7 hours a day at the moment.
Yeah, right. Well, being on the road so much throughout your career, there's got to be a lot of stories to tell. And I know the golden rule is, you know, like what happens on the road stays on the road, but you've got to have some career highlights. Can you tell us any, like, one of your major highlights that you've had?
Well, I must admit, I don't know if it was a highlight, but a memory. I did, before I went tutting, I would travel around the countryside doing an entertainment show. So you may not have known, you know, certainly haven't been around me when I was doing this, but I used to travel around doing an entertainment show with border collie dogs that used to work ducks. I had a bridleless and saddleless sort of horse routine. And I had a Brahman bullock I used to ride, and he'd do tricks, stand on a milk crate. So I did Sydney Royal each year for a few years. I had my horse was a paint horse that's actually still alive today. I do a horsemanship routine. He'd lay down, sit like a dog and whatever. So I was doing I was like a carnival guy, except I had a truck full of bullocks, dogs, horses and ducks. And I did Adelaide Royal one year. So I had to drive to Adelaide. And man, it was a long way. And I stayed, I don't even know where it was. I had some friends at Lightning Rigs that told me to stay at this little town, which was nothing more than a pub. And they told me a few places, definitely don't stay there. And they told me to stay at this one place. I didn't even know what the name it was. And he said, oh, yeah, the only thing that looked. So I went there, I unloaded my bullocks. I actually had a bullock team, had the bullock I rode, the dogs, the ducks, the horses, and I unloaded them all there in the middle of nowhere. And I remember thinking to myself at that point, I think I'm over this. I don't want to be a carnival guy anymore. And and wasn't doing back in those days. I was on my own. I didn't have any staff. Man, tending to those animals and making sure they were looked after and pulling up places in the middle of the night. Yeah, I've probably had a few stories. Nothing's real exciting, but I can remember being over it, and I sure do like being at home now, doing half the Ks I used to do.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. I've done a little bit of travel myself overseas, and I can really appreciate it makes you, really want to be home, I suppose, after spending so much time on the road. So there's another thing too I want to touch base on. You seem to be giving back so much to the cutting and wider community with being on the NCHA board, and also I see you've done a little bit of work doing a sponsorship for the Dolly Foundation, Dolly's Dream Foundation. So do you have any more, fundraising ideas for the future?
Yeah, I look at, there's certainly people out there that do a lot more than Rachel and I do, but as far as the Do It for Dolly deal there, that was just after that tragedy happened, and Dolly's family comes from Springshire. I didn't know them personally, Kate and Tick Everett, but it's just one of them things that I guess it was pretty amazing how the whole country pulled together. And another thing that in the cutting industry, when a fellow cutting truck, Trent Smith, had an accident coming to maturity, you just saw the whole horse community just kind of all pull together. The same as the tragedy with Dolly. So look, doing what we did for Dolly, I think we just donated a horse through the sale. It wasn't a big deal. As far as anything else, look, we lost a friend here recently. Wasn't a horse guy. He was in the horse guy, but he was, even as good as he was with horses, he was better with dogs. A guy called Dennis Sims, and he's left behind his wife Jane and two sons, and Matty, one of his sons. He's got it pretty tough. He's got nearly every stage of epilepsy there is, and he has a tough enough time, but just a great family. So look, I got together. It was before Dennis passed, and Mark Buttsworth and I wanted to do a clinic to just to try and help the Sims family out. So look, that's coming up. We're going to do that through a cutting club down in southeast Queensland. Terry Elliott's been kind enough to help out with that. And look, the only other thing we may have done, Rachel and I talked this year. There's a horse that goes up every year at Landmark Sale, and if we can donate, one of them here soon enough, we will, because look, cutting's been very good to us, very, very good. So it's nothing to give back, whether it be going on the board or whatever. And so yeah, look, a few things coming up. Probably the main thing I want to do here pretty quick, except this COVID-19 deal has got us all probably held up for a while, but would like to do this deal for Jane Sims and her family after her husband Dennis had just passed away.
Yeah, well, that sounds really lovely. So obviously that's something that's going to take a lot of organisation. But what about some fellow competitors? What do you have any suggestions as to how they can give back to the community and to the cutting sport, or even to their own sport if they're not in the cutting industry?
Yeah, I guess it's something, I guess, charity is really something that's a personal thing. I reckon the best thing I ever read was from two I guess they're two religious leaders, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and they said, if you ever want to do something charitable, do something nice for someone and try not to get caught. So I reckon that's what probably our charity should work. No big hoo-ha about it. And I guess, when you ask something like that, it's something that people have got to decide for themselves. Look, I'll be honest with you. When I was young, I think I was just probably your typical ambitious, selfish human being that was going hard for himself. And, I think you can kind of forgive yourself for that, because you just seem to get to a stage in your life where maybe you realize how fortunate you are. You're probably better at practicing maybe gratitude. I just think, as far as advice to anyone else, I guess it's just give a bit if you can, and I think volunteering, whether it be on a committee or something, I don't go to near as many meetings as I should do locally here to another person that's well known to Pride. He's a very good friend of Rod Kidner's. Is the Carpenter family in Springshaw. Springshaw Working Horse Club would be the greatest local club I could know of. They are made up of the most phenomenal human beings that just keep giving up their time to raise absolute fortune each year. They gave away $45,000 last year from one fundraising event. So look, at the end of the day, when you ask that question, if you can jump in and help out, that pretty much, you know, it helps little communities. And what could be a better time than now to think about how you can do something like that during this COVID-19 lockdown? Because really, let's face it, this lockdown deal has given us a good dose of reality of what really matters. I'm probably as guilty as anyone of having things a little bit too high in your values that don't deserve to be there. So yeah, to everyone, just jump in there and help out at your little local communities and charitable things, because it certainly does make a difference.
Yeah, definitely a little bit goes a long way. I love that. And I've had a tiny taste of being on cutting horses, and it amazes me how they really get down and boogie. So, I mean, Jason, have you ever been left on your butt at a competition or at a clinic, and, you know, like they just chop and change so quick and they can just suck right out from underneath you? Have you ever been in that situation?
Well, I haven't been on the butt, but if I keep going long enough, maybe that's coming. But look, I haven't been in. You're right, though. You know, I grew up just riding bush horses with no name and no breeding, no papers, and you know, fortunate enough now to ride some of the best bred horses in the country. And with that great breeding comes, you know, some phenomenal athletes. So you're right. You know, when I can remember the first cutting horse I ever rode was a Freckles Oak horse owned by Clive and Diane Kirkby from my little hometown of Barnbar. And they were kind enough, once again, to donate their time to come to the Bogabri Pony Clan, where I was, and they let everyone in the top troop ride this wonderful cutting horse. So that was the first time I'd ever rode a cutting horse, which was phenomenal, because, I mean, you know, cutting horses' value is quite high, and a bunch of us snotty-nosed little kids got to go on this horse. The next time I probably got to ride a fully trained cutting horse was while I was training my own horse. It was by a horse called Tasselina, and Richard Bull, who owned Tasselina, said to me, "So you're showing that Tasselina gelding at the maturity?" And he said, "Have you showed before?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, we can't have that." And he let me ride the imported stallion Tasselina at my local show, Narrabri. I sat on that horse in the rookies, and he did everything. I just sat there, and I won the rookies that day. Showgirl Sash Tasselina, give me the blue ribbon, kissed the showgirl, waved at the camera, and that was the second time the cutting horse. So, look, the two times I got to ride a cutting horse, as you've had the experience, were by two people that were kind enough to, volunteer that horse, which is a pretty big thing. And I'd say that's what got me hooked. Once you ride a cutting horse and you feel that athleticism underneath you, and a horse taking responsibility for a job, holding that cow, and you just sitting there and being effortless, it's a pretty amazing feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I only had the tiniest taste, but I can see how you got hooked so easily after those couple of rides. And I think I'd be not too far behind you if I had a few more quid behind me, I think. But nonetheless, I suppose it's, you know, it's fascinating to see that and to hear that, and, you know, to be hooked from number one. And I would imagine that would be the case for a lot of disciplines too, like jumping. You know, once you're on a good jumping horse and you really sail over those jumps, or a dressage horse, and you're just sitting there and you know, just that, you know, you're one with that horse. So I think that's amazing. And when you throw a cow into the situation with these cow horse sports, I just think that's phenomenal that the horse kind of takes the lead after you've put so much training in. So I think that's amazing. But I think that'll be all the time we've got for today. But thank you very much for sitting down with me. I appreciate that, and thanks for sharing a bit of insight with what you've learnt through the cutting ring.
Thank you very much, Hayley, and thank you for Prides for being great supporters of mine and keeping all my horses so healthy and in condition where they can be that phenomenal athlete and keep us going down the road.
Awesome, lovely. Thank you. Well, we look forward to touching base with you soon. Okay, thanks, Jason. Take care now.